Good afternoon, dear friends, and I'm very happy to join you for this conference on One Human Family. Thank you for inviting me to share the views of my colleagues and myself in the work that we do globally in order to bring about an inclusive economy, which we also term as the economy of communion. And today I'm very happy to talk about this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think before we go into this topic, it's critical to understand that given the situation of today, it is time for dialogue to update DEI for growth. Now, I want to be very specific about this and also to give you a sense of our own experience. Our company, Consulus, was founded 21 years ago on the basis that unless we are able to bring people together from across the world, unless we can build bridges across cultures, across identities, unless we can truly do that, there can never be a viable and sustainable economy. And being from Singapore, a very small nation, it is virtually impossible if we do not know how to be friends with people of the world because we are a very small country. And you'll be happy to know that we are such great friends of India that a lot of the foreign direct investment that flows out of India comes into Singapore. So, in terms of trade, in terms of bonds of friendship, both countries go back a long way. Now, having said this, it is clear that under the Trump administration, corporate America has been abandoning commitments to DEI. But let's take a step back. Are these companies dropping their commitments to diversity? Not so. But it appears that their commitments to diversity has been largely driven by regulation, or in a sense, force. And they are actually at this moment embarking on the preferred understanding for diversity. So it also provides us room to discuss how we can contribute to this conversation of diversity and inclusion. And I think this is timely. At the same time, there has been some concerns that DEI has not always been very comfortable with those of religious identities. Very few of the Fortune 500 companies were comfortable with faith-oriented engagement programs, while ignoring the fact that 62% of the world profess openly a religious identity. Now, we know that companies are still largely uncomfortable with religious identity because in our upcoming conference at the Vatican, we have reached out to many companies explaining to them that ours is an interfaith initiative, bringing together large corporates in order to discuss how faith-based and non-faith-based organizations can come together to deliver impact for the common good. And even in that conversation, you can tell that many companies were not comfortable. Now, in Consulus, we do a wide variety of work from investment, organization transformation, community engagement. For 21 years, we have understood that while it is easy to talk about growth, it is not easy to bring people together to achieve it. Why? Because there are deep-seated issues that prevent people from working together. And in our assessment, based on the work that we do, whether it's in the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Africa, we understood three major challenges. We could see that across Fortune 500 or across companies and nations, there is a great poverty of trust. You call it, maybe it's an issue of discrimination on the basis of race and identity, but it's really deeper. Because even in this day of interconnectedness, we still do not know much about each other. So there is a lot of work that is needed to build trust. And what is not helping the situation is there are not enough institutions that commit to building trust. And right now, if you look at the collapse of the world order, whether it's at the transnational levels, the United Nations, which is increasingly hampered to mobilize global resources for the common good. If you look at the conflict that we are seeing in our times, where humanitarian aid are struggling to be delivered to the front lines, then you know why the third part is extremely important. We are now in an era where there are not enough solutions to update our institutions, which belong to an older age, not relevant to today's age. And the deep core of the problem is a poverty of trust. So in this moment, as we talk about DEI, I propose we should update DEI to be truly inclusive. And more importantly, how to bridge between those who hold very strong views on what DEI is and how to make those who hold very true to their faith, how do we provide a bridge? And if we really want that bridge, we have to go from a very objective level, not simply take the idea of positions. My way is the right way and your way is the wrong way. And we need to be able to dialogue. And in our own experience called DialogueCORE, in which we try to find new ways of engaging different stakeholders, we propose this idea of one or shared humanity. And our argument is, if we are able to show that economic growth can be achieved through one humanity, then it will bring about a shared sense of coexistence, a shared appreciation of each other as a fair and equitable contribution to building viable and shared growth. Now, we call this the unity method, and I'd like to run this through with you. The first step of this methodology is what we call understanding. Now, it means that in every organization, we need to see everyone. And what do I mean by see everyone? You cannot just see what you want to see. You have to see that in your organization, there are people of different identities, there are people of different religions. And you will see them all equally and objectively. That's where you can recognize and harness this richness. That's when you can build bonds between different stakeholders. That's when you would start to do things not just from a compliance point of view, but from an inclusion point of view. But it's not enough. If an organization is only capable of doing that, it will only remain insular. It will not be able to extend itself by going out. So the next step, which is what we call networking, matters. It's important for every organization that is for dialogue, that is for inclusion, to network with others. In our own experience, organizing Shape the World conference for over 20 years, we have seen that when we bring different stakeholders on different levels, different identities, whether you are faith-based, you are non-faith-based, whether you are of a different identity, whether it's country, ethnicity, we have found that people are able to find very good case to continuing that friendship and to build shared economic growth. The third thing that is very important is what we call innovating. Now, when people are able to trust one another and they work together and they can see the effect of their coming together to innovate, that's when they are more convinced that they need each other. They cannot decline or deny the other person from being in a shared environment. And we have seen that ourselves when we collaborated with one impact organization called RACE in Singapore. And when we created a methodology for them to demonstrate that inclusive design can actually bring about greater economic growth. The fourth part is what we call teaming. Now, if you have partnered with one another on a project basis, as I shared earlier, then you will be more willing to team up together to impact the world for good. And this is very important because unless and until you adopt a long-term approach to teaming with another organization to impact the world for good, you are not really able to be truly inclusive. Now, in our own experience, consulus promotes consistently the economy of communion. But last year, we met this Buddhist organization that promotes the economy of goodness. And we understood that we have to work together because we share the same approach and journey, although different methodologies, but it's important to come together to increase our impact. Now, lastly, yielding. What do I mean? We must be able to measure our impact for inclusion. We must be able to put a framework to it, to work hard at proving that unity for inclusion, unity for a new humanity is actually the most viable way for shared economic growth. Now, last year, and almost a year and a half ago, we started working with a Nigerian organization that impacts the lives of thousands of Nigerian farmers and help them find livelihood and help them to raise their level of economic independence. And in working with them on this approach, we discovered a methodology with them. And this methodology helps to track how well the organization is able to uplift these farmers from poverty and again, connect them with the world so that they understand that unless they are able to build a wider and bigger network from Nigeria to the world, they have a lesser chance to succeed. But because they are able to collaborate with others, they have a higher chance of succeeding and achieving the yield that they are looking for. Currently, we are working on the project as well to raise capital for social enterprises. It's a project that we will launch in our summit in Rome on June 12th in order to help social enterprises that help vulnerable women, families, education to gain economic independence. And this is really important because, again, unless you can put a growth number to it, all DEI-related activities will be seen as regulation, will be seen as cost. But once it generates goodwill, but it also generates shared economic growth, it results in something more permanent. So I hope this has been helpful to you. We believe that this approach of understanding, networking, innovating, teaming, and yielding can help us achieve inclusion without compulsion, but in freedom. All the best for your event. Thank you.